This video is for awareness and educational purposes only. It is not a medical diagnosis of any individual. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please speak to a qualified professional or someone you trust. Imagine standing in front of 1,000,000 people and feeling completely alone. Imagine the whole world calling you a legend, while behind closed doors, you feel completely broken. Imagine having everything, the fame, the money, the talent, and still waking up every morning feeling like you are simply not enough. This was the hidden reality of Michael Jackson, the man the world called the King of Pop. But behind that iconic white glove, behind that breathtaking moonwalk, behind that unforgettable smile, lived a deeply wounded, profoundly lonely, and silently suffering human being. Welcome to You Are Not Alone, where we tell the stories behind the smiles and the battles people often fight in silence. Today, we tell his real story. To understand Michael Jackson's inner world, you must first understand where it all began, because many of the wounds he appeared to carry as an adult were planted in those earliest years. Michael was born in 1958 in Gary, Indiana, a poor, working-class city in America. From the age of just 5 or 6, his father, Joe Jackson, pushed him and his brothers relentlessly into music. In his own autobiography, Michael wrote that his father would watch rehearsals closely, and if anyone made a mistake, punishment followed. Sometimes a belt, sometimes a switch. The rehearsals were relentless, the pressure was crushing, and the childhood was simply taken away. But it was not only the physical pressure. Joe Jackson reportedly mocked Michael's appearance from a young age, commenting on his nose, calling him names that no child should ever hear from a parent. A sensitive, deeply creative young boy, being told by his own father that he was not good enough. Research in psychology consistently shows that painful childhood experiences can significantly increase a person's lifetime vulnerability to emotional struggles, anxiety, and a fragile sense of self-worth. Michael Jackson carried these wounds for much of his life. By his teenage years, Michael Jackson was already the most famous young entertainer on the planet. But fame, as dazzling as it looks from the outside, can quietly become a prison. Michael could not walk freely in a park. He could not sit in a restaurant. He could not form ordinary friendships. Every human being needs connection, belonging, and simple moments of normalcy, and Michael was denied almost all of it. As the years passed, he began to withdraw from the world. He built Neverland Ranch, a fantasy world of rides, animals, and childhood wonder. Many psychologists who have studied his public life and interviews describe this as someone trying to recapture the innocence that was stolen from him as a child. He was not strange. He was not simply eccentric. He was, by all accounts, a deeply lonely man, searching for a safe place in a world that never gave him one. Around this time, those close to him began noticing increasing distress about his appearance. Based on his own interviews and the accounts of people around him, Michael appeared to struggle with intense and painful insecurity about how he looked, a kind of suffering that no mirror and no surgery could ever truly fix. This is something mental health professionals recognize as a pattern seen in many people who experience deep childhood criticism about their appearance. Behind the performances and the platinum records, those who were closest to Michael described a man dealing with very real and very painful emotional struggles. Public interviews, personal accounts, and documented reports paint a picture of someone experiencing deep anxiety, difficulty sleeping, a need for perfection that was never satisfied, and a profound loneliness that never left him, regardless of how loud the applause was. In his own words, Michael once said quietly, "I am one of the loneliest people in the world." That was not performance, that was confession. The legal battles of the 1990s and 2000s added another devastating layer. In the 2005 criminal trial, Michael Jackson was acquitted on all counts. But the years of public humiliation, relentless media attacks, and the destruction of his reputation left marks that went far deeper than any court could address. he began relying increasingly on prescription medications to manage pain, to calm his anxiety, and ultimately, desperately, just to sleep. This was not a celebrity indulging a habit. This was an exhausted, emotionally depleted human being searching for a few hours of peace. In 2009, Michael was preparing for his comeback, the This Is It concert series, 50 shows in London. The world was excited, but those closest to him were deeply concerned. In private emails that later became public, his own director wrote that there were strong signs of paranoia, anxiety, and obsessive behavior. It was like there were two people there, one trying to hold on, the other in a weakened and troubled state. On the 25th of June, 2009, Michael Jackson passed away. Officially, the cause of death was acute propofol intoxication, and the death was ruled a homicide. His personal doctor was later convicted of involuntary manslaughter, but behind that final medical tragedy was a much deeper story, a story of relentless pressure, years of exhaustion, sleeplessness, emotional pain, and a man who had been searching for peace his entire life and never quite found it. He was 50 years old. So what does Michael Jackson's story tell us? It tells us that emotional pain does not discriminate. It does not care how rich you are, how talented you are, or how loudly the world applauds you. It can quietly take root in anyone, in every country, in every walk of life, in every kind of family. It tells us that what a child experiences in their earliest years matters enormously. Words spoken by a parent, pressure placed on young shoulders, love withheld at a critical moment. These things leave marks that can last decades. It tells us that the people who smile the brightest are sometimes the ones hurting the deepest. And it tells us something else, something important, that suffering in silence is never the answer, that reaching out, speaking to someone, asking for help is not weakness. It is perhaps the most courageous thing a human being can do. If you are watching this today and something in Michael's story felt familiar, the loneliness, the pressure, the feeling of not being enough, please know this: you are not alone. Your pain is real, and help is closer than you think. Michael Jackson once sang to the world, "Heal the world." Perhaps the world he most needed to heal was the one living quietly inside himself. Thank you for being part of You Are Not Alone. If this story moved you, please share it, because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear it today. Subscribe for more stories, more honesty, and more hope. Take care of your mind. It is the most precious thing you will ever own.